Mosul has reached the last stage. Although Iraqi troops are still fighting in the old city, it's a matter of days before all Islamic State resistance collapses. Across the border in Syria, the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces are advancing on Raqqa, the capital of the caliphate. The ISIS, in fact, has lost 60% of its territory. But even as the news tightens, is the caliphate migrating to fresh pastures in Africa? Daniele Pagani reports.
West Asia is the heart of the Muslim world, but it is only one of the regions where the Islamic State has a footprint. Retaking Mosul and Raqqa will not be enough to defeat them on a global scale. Elsewhere, the terror outfit is flourishing. The African continent offers perhaps the most worrying scenario. There is an entire belt of insecurity and turmoil from Nigeria to Somalia. A terror arc where, beside the most infamous Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab, a galaxy of minor terror groups is getting more and more active. Many Islamic State fighters are abandoning Libya to join these groups. Others are crossing the Sinai Peninsula and transiting Egypt to Africa. But not all terror groups in Africa have pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. In March, the jihadi groups active in the Sahel region gathered under the banner of Al-Qaeda. They include the Katiba Machina, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Al-Murabitun and Ansar Dine. They can count on 4,000 fighters. Their main sanctuary is in northern Mali. The government is far away, in Bamako, in the southern part of the country, and has little control over the area. Despite 10,000 UN peacekeeping forces and 4,000 French soldiers in the past 4 years, 118 peacekeeping forces lost their lives in terror attacks. In Africa, the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda show a pragmatic approach, leaving their dogmatic rivalries aside and investing in reconciliation processes. The result is more action. In the last decade, they have carried out more than 2,000 attacks in Central and Northern Africa. But what makes them so successful? They can count on strong and stable local networks. They leave a lot of space and initiative to local commanders. They rely on consolidated smuggling routes where they transport everything, from cigarettes to Kalashnikov to fighters. There is no government presence in large swaths of territory, and there is a widespread poverty across the region. The Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, as other jihadi organizations often survive military defeat. They regrow from the blood of their fighters, pushing the narrative of martyrdom. Mali, Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso and Mauritania formed a regional alliance ready to deploy 5,000 soldiers to fight terrorism in the region. It is better than nothing, but without international support it will be too little and too late. The Islamic State is losing in West Asia, but the organization is now a global brand with franchises spreading all over the world. Daniele Pagani for WION.
And joining us with more on this is Daniele Pagani. Good evening, Daniele. You've had a very long day, but let me start with this question. Despite the military defeats, reports say that ISIS is today stronger than it was, say, in 2014. What does that really mean?
Well, militarily, of course, ISIS is being defeated in Iraq. It will take a few days for Mosul to fall, and Raqqa is being attacked thoroughly by the Syrian Democratic Forces. But 2, 3, 4 years back, the Islamic State was a regional actor, active only within West Asia. Now there is a branch in South Asia active between Afghanistan and Pakistan. There are organizations pledging allegiance to the Islamic State in the southern Philippines. They are very much active throughout the African continent. We are talking about a belt going from Nigeria to Somalia. It's as wide as Europe, if not more than that. In Egypt, they are very much active. So what I mean when I say that they are stronger now than in 2014 is that they succeeded in becoming a global branch well established in many countries all over the world.
The presence, I understand, of terror outfits often goes underreported in Africa. Is the continent becoming the new haven for these frontiers?
Yes, I think yes. In my opinion, the fact that it is underreported is a very big problem, and also it is very much far away from the intention of the international communities. There are many peacekeeping forces in Mali, for instance, the United Nations deployed from 10 to 12,000 troops according to the moments of the year, and India, for instance, contributes to 50% of these forces, but the international attention and the international work on the ideological level, on the grassroots level in this entire and enormous belt and an enormous area of the world is pretty much absent. No one is talking about this. So yes, I am afraid that the African continent will provide further safe haven to this terrorist organization.
And is there a direct link between the ISIS in Syria, in West Asia, and the ISIS offshoots in Africa? And what sort of a link is this?
So the first link is obviously on the ideological level. The Islamic State provided to many groups the ideology to fight an enemy, which we normally say the enemy within. So they are fighting also against other Muslims active in the country. There is also a more, I would say, material link, which is the money. There has been a constant flow of money through the Sinai Peninsula, which means on the eastern part of Egypt, bordering with southern Israel and touching Jordania during the years when the Islamic State was a very rich organization and was drilling oil out of Syria and Iraq. And obviously there is also a connection through fighters. Many fighters are abandoning the Libyan fields in order to join the African, the several African groups, and other fighters through the southern part of Jordan are reaching slowly Africa, fleeing from the defeat in Iraq and Syria.
And is the international community taking note? What is it doing about it?
Well, too little and too late, as I said in the report. So basically right now only the UN peacekeeping forces have a massive presence, but as we know, the UN peacekeeping forces do have very strict and severe rules of engagement. It is difficult to think about them as an offensive force. The French soldiers, there are French soldiers in Mali, 4,000 French soldiers, and they are on the offensive. And also 5 countries in the Sahel region, this central region of Africa, formed very recently a 5,000 soldier, I would call it, unit in order to fight terrorism in Africa. It's not enough. I mean, as always, terrorism is not only a problem of law and order, a problem of security, a military problem. The ideological level, contrasting all these organizations on the grassroots and contrasting their ideology is perhaps the pillar of the struggle against them. And this is not happening in Africa, unfortunately.
Right. Daniele Pagani, thanks very much for joining us with that.